Welcome to Timeless Tales Reimagined. Today I'm excited to share with you the first in a series inspired by one of the most enchanting works of literature, The 1001 Nights, or as many know it, Arabian Nights. This timeless collection of stories dates back to the Islamic Golden Age, roughly between the 8th and 14th centuries. It's a rich tapestry of tales filled with adventure, love, betrayal, and wisdom passed down through generations. The book's stories were shaped by diverse cultures, from Persian and Indian traditions to Arabian folklore, creating a truly unique and global masterpiece. The central frame story follows Shahrazad, a brilliant storyteller who uses her captivating tales to save her life night after night from King Shahryar. Through this video, I hope to bring these magical tales to life in a way that's engaging and accessible for modern audiences. Sit back, relax, and let's dive into the timeless world of The 1001 Nights. Once, in the far-off lands of India and China, there lived two mighty kings, Shahryar the elder and Shah Zaman the younger. They ruled their kingdoms with justice and wisdom, earning the love and respect of their subjects. For 20 years their reigns were peaceful and prosperous, but as time passed, Shahryar yearned to see his younger brother. He sent his trusted vizier with precious gifts, gold-embroidered horses, jewels, and rare treasures to invite Shah Zaman to his court. Shah Zaman welcomed the vizier warmly and agreed to visit, but on the night of his departure he discovered his wife in the arms of a servant. Overcome with rage, he killed them both and set out to his brother's kingdom, haunted by his betrayal. When Shahryar greeted him with joy, Shah Zaman tried to hide his grief. But his pale face and withered spirit did not go unnoticed. One day, while Shahryar was away hunting, Shah Zaman looked out from the palace window and saw a shocking scene. Shahryar's wife and her maids were engaged in secret, scandalous acts with slaves from the court. Witnessing this, Shah Zaman found strange solace. He thought, "My pain is not mine alone." When Shahryar returned, Shah Zaman confided in him. To uncover the truth, Shahryar devised a ruse to spy on his wife. What he saw left him shattered. In his fury, he ordered the execution of his queen and her servants. But his sorrow turned into a deep mistrust of all women. To guard his heart, Shahryar devised a grim ritual. Each night he married a new bride, only to have her executed by morning. This terrible cycle continued for years, leaving the kingdom in despair, as families hid their daughters from the king's reach. Enter Shahrazad, the vizier's eldest daughter, a woman of extraordinary wisdom and courage. She had read countless books and knew stories that could captivate any heart. She volunteered to marry Shahryar, despite her father's pleas. "Either I will end this tyranny or die trying," she declared. On their wedding night, Shahrazad asked to bid farewell to her younger sister Dunyazad. As planned, Dunyazad requested Shahrazad to tell a story to ease the long night. Shahrazad began weaving a tale so enchanting that when dawn broke, the king postponed her execution to hear its conclusion. And so began her 1001 nights of storytelling, each night a new tale, each dawn another chance to live. The Tale of the Merchant and the Jinnee. As the first night fell, Shahrazad began her tale. In a distant land there lived a merchant, a man of great wisdom and honesty, who travelled far and wide to trade his goods. One day, while journeying through a vast desert, the merchant grew weary. Finding a shady tree, he stopped to rest and eat. As he bit into a date and tossed aside the pit, he felt refreshed and thought of the family waiting for him back home. But no sooner had he taken another bite than a great whirlwind stirred the air. From it emerged a terrifying Jinnee, his form towering like a mountain with eyes blazing like fire. "Prepare to meet your end," roared the Jinnee. "You have killed my son with that date pit you carelessly threw." The merchant trembled, pleading, "I did not know. Surely there must be a way to atone for this mistake." But the Jinnee's heart was hard, and he raised his hand to strike. The merchant begged for one last mercy. "Let me return home to settle my affairs, say goodbye to my family, and prepare for my death. I promise to return in 1 year." The Jinnee, moved by the merchant's honesty, agreed. "But if you fail to return, your life shall be forfeit." With that, he vanished into the whirlwind, leaving the merchant alone under the tree. The year passed swiftly. The merchant returned to his family, divided his wealth, and embraced his loved ones one last time. True to his word, he set out for the desert to meet his fate, his heart heavy but at peace. When he arrived at the tree, the Jinnee awaited him, ready to deliver judgment. But before the blow could fall, 3 elderly men approached, each leading a strange creature: a gazelle, 2 black dogs, and a mule. Intrigued by the scene, they offered to hear the merchant's story and pleaded with the Jinnee for his life. The first man stepped forward, saying, "If I tell you a tale so wondrous that it matches the merchant's honesty, will you grant him a third of his life?" The Jinnee agreed, and the first man began his story. The tale of the first man and the gazelle. The first man, a dignified elder with a kind face, stepped forward and bowed before the Jinnee. "Great and powerful spirit," he began, "if you find my tale worthy, grant the merchant a third of his life. Let me tell you of a journey that began with love but turned into sorrow, and how the strangest twist of fate brought me here today." He gestured to the elegant gazelle standing beside him, its large, mournful eyes glinting in the firelight. Stroking its head tenderly, he began his tale. "I was once a merchant myself, a man of wealth and standing. I had a wife whom I loved dearly and trusted with all my heart. We lived a life of comfort, blessed with riches and the companionship of a son, who was my pride and joy. But as the years passed, I learned that trust can sometimes be a dangerous gift. Unbeknownst to me, my wife was skilled in dark magic, a talent she kept hidden for years. One day, while I was away on business, she grew jealous of my affection for our son. In her envy, she transformed him into a calf and our servant into a cow, disguising her cruelty as an accident of fate. When I returned, I found my son and servant missing and my wife weeping bitterly. 'A great misfortune has befallen us,' she said, tears streaming down her face. 'Our beloved calf and cow died suddenly while you were away.' I believed her lies and mourned deeply, not knowing the truth. Time passed and I decided to host a great feast, offering the cow as a sacrifice. I ordered it to be slaughtered, but as the blade was raised, the animal bellowed so pitifully that my heart broke. I called off the sacrifice and instead had the calf brought forth. When the calf saw me, it ran to my side, nuzzling me as though pleading for help. This strange behaviour filled me with unease. That night, I couldn't sleep, haunted by the thought that something was amiss. I decided to consult an old woman who lived nearby, known for her wisdom and insight. When I told her what had happened, she frowned and asked to see the calf. Upon meeting the animal, she muttered incantations and sprinkled water over it. In an instant, the calf transformed into my son, standing before me with tears in his eyes. The truth came tumbling out. My wife's jealousy, her magic, and her deception. Furious, I confronted her, but she showed no remorse. The wise woman, in her mercy, offered to punish my wife without ending her life. "Let her live as a gazelle," she said, "to reflect on her actions and the love she destroyed." And so my wife has lived as a gazelle ever since. I have cared for her, for though her actions were cruel, I could not abandon her completely. She travels with me now, a constant reminder of the fragile bonds of love and trust. "Great Jinnee," the man concluded, "this is my story. If you find it worthy, spare the merchant a third of his life." The Jinnee, moved by the tale, nodded solemnly. "Your story is indeed wondrous," he said, "and I grant the merchant a third of his life. Let the next man speak." Tale of the second man and the 2 black dogs. The second man, a stately figure with a thoughtful demeanour, stepped forward, holding the leashes of 2 large black dogs that sat obediently at his feet. He addressed the Jinnee with a respectful bow. "Great and powerful Jinnee," he began, "allow me to tell you my story. If it pleases you, grant the merchant another third of his life. My tale is one of loyalty, betrayal, and the enduring power of forgiveness." He looked down at the 2 dogs, their eyes glistening in the firelight. "These 2 creatures," he said, "are not what they seem. They are my brothers." The crowd murmured in surprise, and even the Jinnee raised an eyebrow. The man began his tale. "Many years ago, we were 3 brothers, sons of a prosperous merchant. Upon our father's passing, we inherited his wealth and divided it equally among us. Each of us used our share to begin a trading business. My brothers were ambitious and eager to see the world, so they convinced me to join them on a grand trading expedition. We purchased goods, loaded our ships, and set sail for distant lands. Our journey was prosperous and we earned great riches. But on our return voyage, my brothers became consumed by greed. They plotted against me, deciding that they would kill me and take my share of the fortune. One dark night, while the sea was calm, they threw me overboard. As I sank into the cold depths, I resigned myself to death. But fate intervened. A kind-hearted spirit of the sea appeared and carried me to shore. She said, "You have suffered a great betrayal, but your story is not yet over. Be wary, for your brother's greed will bring them to ruin." I returned home and began anew, rebuilding my life with the little I had left. Meanwhile, my brothers squandered their wealth in foolish ventures and returned to me. Destitute, they begged for forgiveness, and though I remembered their treachery, I could not turn them away. I welcomed them back into my home. But their hearts had not changed. Once again they plotted to harm me, hoping to seize the modest fortune I had rebuilt. This time, their schemes caught the attention of a wise sorceress who lived in our town. She saw through their deceit and approached me, saying, "Your brothers are beyond redemption. Their actions have brought misery to you and themselves. I shall transform them into dogs, so they may serve you loyally and learn the value of what they have lost." And so my brothers have lived as these black dogs ever since. They travel with me, a constant reminder of the danger of unchecked greed and the importance of forgiveness. The second man looked up at the Jinnee, his eyes calm yet sorrowful. "Great Spirit," he said, "if my story moves you, grant the merchant another third of his life." The Jinnee nodded solemnly. "Your tale is indeed worthy," he said. "I grant the merchant second third of his life. Let the final man speak." Fireside-friendly narrative. The tale of the third man and the mule. The third man, a wiry figure with a quiet strength, stepped forward, guiding a gentle mule by his side. Bowing deeply to the Jinnee, he began, "Great and powerful one, allow me to share my story, and if it pleases you, grant the merchant the final third of his life." He placed a hand on the mule's head and sighed. "This mule, who now travels with me, was once my beloved wife." The crowd gasped and the man began his tale. "Many years ago, I was a wealthy and happy man, blessed with a wife who was beautiful, clever, and charming. I adored her, and I believed she loved me as deeply. For a time, we lived in harmony, but as the years passed, I began to notice strange things. My wealth diminished inexplicably, and my good fortune seemed to fade. One day, I decided to seek the counsel of a wise woman, known for her understanding of hidden truths. She listened to my story and said, 'Your wife is not what she seems. She has been working against you, draining your fortune through magic and deceit. If you wish to uncover the truth, observe her closely tonight.' That evening, I feigned sleep and watched as my wife crept out of bed. She went to the garden and summoned a djinn, who handed her a pouch of gold stolen from my coffers. Enraged but cautious, I sought the wise woman's help once more. She gave me a potion and said, 'Use this to confront her. It will reveal her true nature.' The next night, I confronted my wife with the potion. She shrieked as her form changed, and before my eyes she became the mule you see here. Though her beauty was gone, I could not abandon her. I decided to care for her as a mule, hoping one day she might repent and regain her humanity." The third man looked at the Jinnee with steady eyes. "This is my story. If it pleases you, grant the merchant the final third of his life." The Jinnee, moved by the man's tale, nodded. "Your story is indeed wondrous," he said. "The merchant is spared." The Jinnee, moved by the tales of the three men, looked at the merchant and spoke. "Your life has been spared, merchant. These stories of loyalty, betrayal, and redemption have shown me the depths of human experience. You may go free, but let these tales guide your path." The merchant, overwhelmed with relief, bowed deeply to the Jinnee and turned to the three men. "You have saved my life with your courage and wisdom. I owe you a debt that I can never repay." The men smiled and blessed the merchant as he departed, his heart lighter and filled with gratitude. With the dawn breaking on the horizon, Shahrazad paused her tale, leaving King Shahryar enthralled. He gestured for her to continue the next night, eager to hear more of her captivating storytelling. And so, as the sun set once more, she began a new story, weaving her magic through words to delay her fate for yet another day. As the new night fell, Shahrazad began her next tale, her voice steady and warm, capturing King Shahryar's attention once again. There once lived a poor fisherman who cast his net into the sea every day to provide for his family. His life was humble, his possessions few, but he worked tirelessly, relying on the sea's bounty for survival. One morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, painting the waves with golden light, he set out with his net, as he always did, praying for a good catch. The fisherman cast his net for the first time and waited, watching the water ripple around it. When he hauled it back, he was dismayed to find it heavy with mud and debris. Undeterred, he cast it a second time, but this time the net brought back only seaweed. A third attempt yielded little more than broken shells and pebbles. Frustrated but persistent, he threw the net one final time, saying aloud, "O Lord, you know my struggle. Let this cast bring me something of value." When the fisherman hauled in the net, it was unusually heavy. His heart leapt with hope, but as he dragged it ashore, he found no fish within. Instead, there was a large ornate brass jar, sealed tightly with a lid of lead stamped with strange markings. Examining it closely, he noticed inscriptions etched into the metal, symbols he did not understand, but they looked ancient and powerful. Curiosity got the better of him. What could be inside this jar, he wondered. With great effort, he pried open the seal. As soon as the lid came off, a thick black smoke poured out, swirling around him and filling the air with an ominous presence. The smoke twisted and coiled until it formed the shape of a towering Efreet, its fiery eyes glaring down at the fisherman. Its voice boomed like thunder, shaking the ground beneath his feet. "Prepare to die!" the Efreet roared. "For centuries I have been imprisoned in that jar, cursing the one who trapped me. In the first 100 years, I swore to reward anyone who freed me with riches beyond measure. In the 2nd century, I vowed to grant them 3 wishes. But as time passed, my fury grew. Now I will grant nothing but death to my liberator." The fisherman, trembling, fell to his knees. "Great Efreet," he pleaded, "I had no knowledge of your imprisonment. Surely you would not punish the one who freed you out of ignorance." But the Efreet, consumed by rage, would not be swayed. The fisherman, however, was clever. Gathering his wits, he looked up at the giant and said, "Mighty Efreet, forgive my doubt, but I cannot believe one so large and fearsome as yourself could ever fit into such a small jar. Surely you are not as powerful as you claim." The Efreet, insulted, thundered, "You dare question my power, mortal? Watch and see." With that, the Efreet dissolved into smoke once more and funneled itself back into the jar to prove its might. Quick as lightning, the fisherman seized the lid and slammed it back onto the jar, sealing the Efreet inside. The Efreet's muffled cries echoed from within. "Release me, fisherman! I swear by the name of King Solomon, I will do you no harm and grant you a great reward." The fisherman, still wary, replied, "You vowed to kill me before. How can I trust your oath now?" "I was blinded by my rage," the Efreet confessed. "Let me prove my sincerity. Release me, and I will show you a treasure beyond your wildest dreams." After a long pause, the fisherman decided to trust the Efreet. Slowly, he unsealed the jar, and the smoke emerged once more, forming the towering figure of the spirit. This time, the Efreet knelt before the fisherman and said, "Follow me." The fisherman, cautious but curious, followed the Efreet to a secluded lake surrounded by lush greenery. The water shimmered under the moonlight, and within it swam fish of extraordinary colours, red, yellow, blue and white. "Cast your net here," the Efreet instructed, "and take these fish to your sultan. They will bring you great fortune." The fisherman did as he was told and caught 4 of the vibrant fish. Thanking the Efreet, he returned to the city and presented his unusual catch to the sultan. The sultan, amazed by the fish, summoned his chef to prepare them immediately. But as the fish sizzled on the pan, something miraculous happened. The chef was startled when the fish spoke, crying out, "Do not eat us, for we are under a spell." The sultan, astonished, ordered an inquiry into the origins of these enchanted fish. Thus began another tale within this tale, as the fisherman revealed the Efreet and the mysterious lake. The sultan vowed to uncover the truth behind the magical curse, and so his journey into the unknown began. The sultan, filled with curiosity and a sense of duty, decided to investigate the mystery of the enchanted lake and the talking fish. He summoned the fisherman to his court and questioned him about the strange catch. "Your Majesty," the fisherman replied humbly, "these fish come from a lake deep in the wilderness, shown to me by an Efreet I freed from a brass jar. The lake is unlike any other, and its waters are home to fish of 4 distinct colours: red, white, blue and yellow. Beyond that, I know little more." The Sultan, intrigued and determined to uncover the truth, commanded his guards to prepare for a journey to the lake. With a small retinue, he set out early the next morning, guided by the fisherman. They travelled for many days, crossing deserts, forests and mountains until they finally reached the shimmering waters of the lake. The Sultan marvelled at its beauty and the vibrant fish swimming beneath its surface. However, as he looked closer, he sensed an air of sorrow around the place, as though the lake itself carried a hidden burden. "There is magic here," the Sultan said to his guards. "Stay vigilant." He explored the area around the lake and discovered a narrow pathway leading into the mountains. Curiosity spurred him onward. Leaving his guards behind, the Sultan followed the path until he came upon a grand but desolate palace, its gates open yet silent. The once majestic structure now stood in ruins, with vines creeping up its walls and the wind whispering through its empty halls. As the Sultan stepped inside, he was startled to find a young man sitting alone on a grand throne. The man was clothed in fine garments, but his expression was one of deep sorrow. Around him were statues of black stone, eerily lifelike, as if they had once been people. The young man rose as the Sultan approached and bowed respectfully. "Welcome, Your Majesty," he said, his voice heavy with melancholy. "I know why you have come. You seek the truth behind the enchanted lake and the talking fish. I shall tell you my story, though it is one of heartbreak and misfortune." The Sultan listened intently as the young man began his tale. "I am the rightful king of this land. Many years ago, my people lived in harmony, and this palace was a place of joy and celebration. But my happiness was short-lived, for I married a woman who, though beautiful, was wicked at heart. She was a sorceress who hid her dark powers from me. One day, I discovered her betrayal. She had taken a lover and used her magic to conceal their meetings. When I confronted her, she grew furious and unleashed her wrath upon my kingdom. With her spells, she turned my people into fish of 4 colours and cast them into the lake. My palace guards and servants she transformed into statues of black stone, leaving me alone to mourn the loss of my kingdom." The young king paused, his voice trembling with emotion. "To punish me further, she cursed me to remain half man, half statue by night, while by day I am free to roam the palace. I am powerless to undo her magic, for she is far stronger than I." The Sultan, moved by the tale, placed a comforting hand on the young king's shoulder. "Take heart," he said. "I will not leave until justice is done. Tell me, where is this sorceress now?" "She resides in the highest tower of the palace," the young king replied. "She spends her days practicing her dark arts, unaware that her time may soon come to an end." The Sultan devised a plan. He would confront the sorceress and use his cunning to break her curse. Quietly, he made his way to the tower, where he found her seated before a cauldron, muttering incantations. The Sultan hid himself and listened closely, waiting for the right moment to strike. The Sultan waited patiently in the shadows of the tower, observing the sorceress as she worked her dark magic. Her long, flowing robes shimmered in the dim light, and her voice echoed with an unsettling power as she chanted incantations over her bubbling cauldron. Summoning his courage, the Sultan stepped into the chamber. "Wicked sorceress," he declared, his voice commanding, "your tyranny ends today." The sorceress turned sharply, her eyes narrowing with fury. "Who dares disturb my sanctuary?" she hissed, her voice venomous. She raised her hands, preparing to cast a spell, but the Sultan was quick. Drawing his sword, he advanced, the gleaming blade catching the light of the cauldron's fire. "Your magic may terrify others," the Sultan said, "but your cruelty has no place in this world. I demand you undo the curses you have wrought upon this kingdom and its people." The sorceress laughed, her voice filled with malice. "Undo my work? Foolish mortal! You cannot comprehend the power I wield. These curses are my masterpiece, and no man can force my hand." Realizing that brute force alone would not prevail, the Sultan changed his approach. Lowering his sword slightly, he spoke calmly but with calculated words. "What if I could offer you something far greater than vengeance?" he asked. What if your magic could be known and respected across all lands, not as a tool of destruction, but of creation? The sorceress hesitated, curiosity flickering in her eyes. And why, she said, would a sultan propose such a thing to one he calls wicked? The sultan took a step closer, maintaining an air of confidence. Because I see your talent, misused may be. The young king's people, now fish in the lake, have suffered long enough. Undo your curse, and I will ensure your name is spoken, not with fear, but with awe. The sorceress stared at him, conflicted. Power and recognition had always been her greatest desires, but the hatred she harboured for the young king still burned fiercely. After a long silence, she smirked. Very well, Sultan. If you wish to see the extent of my magic, I shall grant your request, but under one condition. The young king must take my place, trapped as half man, half statue for eternity. The Sultan, unwavering, replied. No. You will undo your curse entirely, or I will see to it that you are stripped of your powers forever. The sorceress, realizing the Sultan would not relent, grew enraged. Her chants grew louder as she conjured a powerful spell. The Sultan braced himself as the air crackled with energy, but in her anger, the sorceress made a fatal error. Her spell rebounded, striking her instead. With a shriek, she collapsed, her power drained. Seizing the moment, the Sultan searched her chamber and found an ancient tome filled with her spells. Carefully following the instructions, he performed the incantations to reverse her curses. The air grew still, and a strange silence filled the palace. Suddenly, the statues lining the halls began to stir. The black stone cracked and fell away, revealing the young king's guards and servants, now freed from their petrified forms. Outside, the lake shimmered as the colourful fish leapt into the air and transformed back into the people of the kingdom. Joyful cries echoed as the curse was lifted. The young king, who had watched the events unfold with bated breath, felt his own transformation. No longer bound by the curse, he stood tall, free at last. Tears welled in his eyes as he bowed deeply to the Sultan. Your Majesty, he said, you have done what I thought impossible. You have restored my kingdom and my people. I owe you my life and my eternal gratitude. The Sultan smiled. It was not just for you, young king, but for justice and the hope of a better world. Rule your kingdom wisely and with kindness. With that, the Sultan returned to his own lands, leaving the young king to rebuild his kingdom. The story of the enchanted lake and the brave Sultan spread far and wide, becoming a legend told for generations. As Shahrazad finished this tale, the first light of dawn crept into the room. King Shahryar, captivated, leaned forward. Such tales intrigue me, he said. You may live another day, Shahrazad, but tomorrow night you must continue with a story just as wondrous. And so Shahrazad prepared to weave another tale, knowing that her life depended on the power of her words.